and gentlemen, leaders and fighters for freedom and liberty and the American dream, the best is yet to come.
All right, it's kind of hard to forget that moment from Kimberly Guilfoyle at the 2020 Republican National Convention. And while several reports say that her relationship with Donald Trump Jr. may be a thing of the past, the president-elect has tapped her to serve as the ambassador to Greece. Let's bring in our political panel, Meghan Hayes and Lance Trover. Meghan previously served as the director of message planning for the Biden White House, and Lance is a Republican strategist who served as a spokesperson for North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum's White House bid. Great to see you both. So we remember that moment from the convention. Greece, not a bad place to be, but the idea that Trump has appointed a lot of family members to his cabinet, the fathers of his daughters-in-law and other family members, not to the cabinet, I should say, to places in the administration. Lance, I'm wondering, what does it say about how Trump may govern? And do you think Americans care that he's putting family members in these positions?
I don't think they give to we're on a family show. Family program. I don't think they care at all. Kimberly Guilfoyle is an attorney by trade. She was an associate prosecutor in San Francisco. I mean, she has a career of her own. And yeah, he's done that. He did that in the last administration where we saw his daughter and son-in-law in the White House. And I don't think anybody really cared then. I'm not sure a lot of people care now. I think it's important for the president to have people around him that he trusts and the people that he can turn to. And if it's members of his family, and I'm actually okay with it. And I don't think the voters are really minded that much.
I mean, is there anything to that, Meghan? I mean, obviously we know that Biden pardoned his own son, but is there anything to that? Do you think that it could help him?
So I agree with you. I don't actually think people care that are out in the general public. I also think there's not much difference in appointing your father-in-law, your daughter's father-in-law, or your son's ex-fiance here in Greece. These are political appointments. The ambassadorships are very political, and so these all serve a different purpose. And also these positions are much more diplomatic and much more of a relationship building. They sponsor a lot of parties and are very, representing America in a different social way than actually governing. So these ambassador posts, I think, are fine. If you start getting into positions in the government, I think that's a different conversation.
Yeah, that's an important nuance there and distinction there. I do want to talk about Kash Patel because today we have big news, obviously, that FBI Director Wray says he's going to resign. I mean, no big surprise here because Trump had said that he was going to appoint Patel. The reaction on Capitol Hill seems pretty supportive, at least among Republicans at this point. How should they be navigating all of this? And what do they make of Wray's announcement today?
To me, it's not a surprise. I mean, it was coming one way or the other. Look, I think Kash Patel is going to get through the Senate. I think Pam Bondi's going to get through the Senate. In fact, I think most of everybody else going forward are probably going to get through the Senate. They laid down the marker on one with Matt Gaetz. I've argued for a long time now. I think those number of chits with the Senate are limited out there. And so I think you've seen the reaction, particularly among the grassroots in Republicans out there who are really getting behind the Pete Hegseths of the world, who are getting behind the Kash Patels of the world. You're seeing the Trump organization come out strongly in favor of them. And so that's going to put a lot of pressure on these senators, particularly the ones that are up for re-election in 2026. They have to think long and hard about, do I really want to cross President Trump and the grassroots on this stuff?
And it's interesting because obviously a lot of the focus has been on the Republicans. They are going to have the majority in the Senate when it comes to these confirmations. They're in the spotlight. But Democrats seem, I don't know if it's just that the spotlight has been on Republicans, but Democrats do seem a little bit muted in their criticisms. Are they just waiting for the confirmation hearings to kind of put forward a more robust opposition, or are they kind of ceding the spotlight? How should Democrats navigate this?
I think that they are waiting for the confirmation hearings, right? They don't have a lot to do here. I think that a lot of this is coming out into the public. It's going through the media, and the narrative is being driven publicly that they don't have to be saying a lot. So this is on the Republicans right now to even consider if we do have another Gaetz situation with Hegseth or Tulsi Gabbard or even Kash Patel, if they're going to not even get to an actual hearing. So I think that Democrats will get all this stuff, are waiting for all this stuff to come out in the public eye, and then when it comes to the hearings, they will start asking really tough questions, and it will be tough for them, and they will put them on the spot. But I don't think that they need to be doing anything right now, because right now is not the time for them to do it. So Republicans need to make sure that these folks get to a hearing.
And Lance, to your point, and kind of to that point as well, I mean, this pressure campaign that you mentioned, it seemed like that was out in full force, especially on Hegseth. Yeah. What's kind of the Republican thinking? Is it that, Republicans owe their seats to Donald Trump. They have an important role to play here, and advice and consent is a top job for them. What is it about this pressure campaign that you think is working?
I think it's just a reminder to the senators that Donald Trump won, and he won pretty resoundingly. And, I don't know that people owe their seats to him necessarily. I think there are a lot of members of Congress who do owe their seats to Donald Trump, very much so, and should not forget that. But the grassroots are important to the entire Trump operation. MAGA world is very important. And, for some of these folks who are up in 2026, they could potentially face primaries. And that's what they need to think about when they go into whether they want to cross or not. Yes, they absolutely have an advising consent. They should absolutely do that and ask the tough questions. You saw Senator Collins today met with Pete Hegseth. She's like, look, I asked him some tough questions. That's what they're doing. That's all part of the process. I think where Republicans were getting a little annoyed was this trying to, I don't want to attack the media, but the media going pretty hard at some of these folks. And I think they've just felt the need that there needed to be some pushback saying, no, we're with the president and we're with his appointments.
And also with Joni Ernst in particular, who is getting bracketed pretty heavily with ads in Iowa, and her 2026 campaign looked a little untenable with a primary candidate coming. It was also floated that she wanted to be the DOD to replace him, and I think it put her in a really tough spot not to go with Hegseth now, because now it's like, do you face a primary candidate? Do you get the DOD appointment? That kind of put her in a really tough political spot. So this is politics, I think, at its best, and they have to understand that Trump is the leader of their party, and this is the price you're paying for having him as the leader of your party.
Yeah, and something that these lawmakers have had to navigate for a while is that these are their constituents too, that they are representing, to your point, members of the MAGA base. What I'm also interested in is kind of where Democrats are. We've all been talking about that for a while, but is there a leader that's kind of emerging in the Democratic Party, or anybody that we should keep an eye on? Because I was kind of thinking about this with Biden's speech yesterday on the economy. He really hasn't been out there. I mean, we're in a transition process. He only has about 6 weeks to go still in office. But there are big questions about who is emerging as a leader of the Democratic Party. I mean, is there anyone that you have an eye on, or anybody that you may be looking for in these confirmation hearings, for example, to kind of see where Democrats go?
I think it'll be interesting to see, but I think that the governors are really going to play a role in the Democratic Party moving forward, because I think that, as we saw, that the Midwest and the country is much more moderate, and Democrats are going to have to move to the middle, and the Midwest governors are really the ones who are leading the charge on that. So I think that will be interesting to watch. In terms of the Senate hearings, I think it will be interesting to see what, for instance, Senator Gillibrand does with Pete Hegseth. I mean, sexual assault in the military is one of her top issues. So it'll be interesting to sort of see how these people come out and they stake their ground in some of these issue areas. But I think we'll have to wait until Trump is actually inaugurated and these hearings go forth to see who's going to be a new rising star.
Yeah, sometimes they emerge from these kinds of hearings. We'll see. A lot more to discuss, so we'll have you guys back very soon. Meghan and Lance, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.